Alright, welcome to a technical video here where basically we're going to do a quick dive into the source code in regarding the energy levels, silence threshold, and silence hits. We had a customer come in with a question regarding, what might be the proper values for these things, and when I did a brief look in documentation, there really wasn't a whole lot of information discussing exactly, energy levels and in these silence values and how they might be relevant to your situation. So just taking a quick look at the documentation here, when I did a search for energy level, there are some hits in there, such as the conference. If you go over the conference area, conference documentation, you can see the energy level talking about a 0 through 1800, and also there are some other relevant hits for, like, if you're in the wait for silence provided by ModDP tools, you see the silence threshold and the silence hits. And specifically what the customer was asking about was the session record file and the relevance for silence threshold and silence seconds as contained here within this function. And so what this record file actually, the source code that it dips into would be the record function provided by ModDP tools here. And so here you can see the actual syntax if you were to use this over ESL, such as in Lua and whatnot. And so specifically what we're going to go look at is the silence threshold and the silence hits. And basically what I had to do was go into the source code and modify the source code to actually bring out the information that I was hoping to see, which is basically a timely reporting of actually what FreeSWITCH evaluates this stuff to. So let's go ahead and jump on into your source code. And what I had to do is I had to go right down here to the switch IVR say.c file, and that's specifically where I was at. Let's see, just give you an example here. If we jump up to line 356, this is the actual function in which I found my subfunction that I was looking to modify, the switch IVR record file. This is the exact same function that this dips into. So that's how we trace that there. So let's go on down to our specific line that we were looking to modify, which was 865 or 864, I believe. And for you, depending on your version of code, it might be different, but thereabouts is basically in this function here, at the not as is and FH thresh. If you come on down here, these were the 5 specific lines that I added to source code, which basically was, if I add the switch channel variable true to my channel, which I called debug_energy_level, if we add this to our channel variable, we should be able to get energy level, silence threshold, and silence hits spit out into our logs. So once I made that edit, I went ahead and jumped on over to the let's see, what is it, the bash line. Oh yeah, so once I made those edits in that source file, I went ahead and did make core -install and then service FreeSWITCH restart. So that'll recompile that specific module of code. And then before we actually showcase our code, let's go over here to the dial plan. So here's what I had for a dial plan. I went ahead and made extension 311, in which we attached a playback terminator, and here is the variable, newly created variable that I added to source code, debug energy level equals true. And for my initial values, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this for 0, 1, and 2, which basically is, according to our documentation, that would be our time limit in seconds for the recording, a silence threshold, and a silence hit. And so for my specific period of time to record, I'm going to pick 0 to record indefinitely. Silence threshold, I'm going to put at the lowest level 1, so we can showcase and have a look at things without actually tripping up the the cancel recording, and then for 2 seconds. So let's go ahead and get on over to FSCLI and look at this here. I'll do a reload. Our reload XML. All right, so we can see our 3 log lines that we added to our source code in action here, and when it's actually reporting some values. And so the values that we're going to look at first here is the silence threshold score. Now notice that right here we're on speakerphone, so I'm going to go silent, and we're going to observe the threshold scores and see what it looks like just on ambient room noise. So I see it hovering there around 13 to 17 or so. So our threshold score is hovering anywhere between like 12 and 18. And so what that means for me is that here is where on this silence threshold in my dial plan, then I can just go ahead and take this above my average. So let's just take it right on up to say 25. Come on back, reload, and we'll redial. All right. And notice how, so basically, see when I'm talking, the silence hits jumps back up to its max value of 2. Because once we fall below the 25 threshold marker, then all of a sudden our silence hits will start counting down. And there you have it. So we were 2 seconds well below, we were 2 seconds well below the 25 threshold there. So let's go back into FSCLI again, and this time what we're going to do is we're going to actually pick up the handset, because our speakerphone was hovering right around between 13 and 17. So let's see what it's like on handset. Ambient noise seems to be hovering around 5, 6, 7. 5, 6, 7. That's about the average. What I'm seeing is 7. So what I can do then is if I expect to have more people on handsets than on speakerphones, well then I can just go ahead and drop this down to, let's just say, probably 10. And we'll reload and recall in. And so that's speakerphone. So speakerphone is well above the 10 threshold, right? Because it was hovering around 14 to 15. And that's why our silence hits is still hovering around 200. It's not dropping at all, because we're above the threshold at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up the handset, and we should have much more quiet ambiance. And so we should see the silence hits start dropping once I go silent. And sure enough, it is dropping. And no sooner than I speak, the silence hits resets itself. There you have it. And so, hold silence long enough, it'll eventually cancel itself. Stop the recording. All right. So now let's just say we're in a noisy environment. Let's go ahead and let's call back in, and let's get some white noise. I just got a little battery-powered radio here, and we're going to grab some white noise. And so see our silence threshold. Let's see if we can get hover right around 500. There you go. So that's right around 400 or 500. So at this point now, I can go back to my dial plan, and let's just say that's my that's my background noise. I'm in a noisy environment. I work at a power plant or something, and so we're going to go ahead and increase this right on up to about, let's just say, 750. All right. Come back. We'll do a hop on, do a reload, call back in. and we can see that our 750 is well above the silence threshold, and so it knows when I'm not talking, even though there's still lots of background noise. Our silence hits keeps dropping, so no sooner than I stop talking, FreeSWITCH knows, and it starts counting down your silence hits until, hey, nobody must be on the line anymore, hang up. And there you have it. Alright, and let's see here. I guess that would be that would probably be the best showcase, because again, with this, let's just say we had that that background noise. If our background noise is higher than threshold and our threshold is too low, then obviously it's going to continually think that somebody's there even though nobody's talking. See, notice I've stopped talking, but our silence hits aren't dropping. So that should give you a good roundabout idea on how to deal with this silence and energy levels, and kind of give you an idea on how to set stuff. And so again, just taking a look at the source code, what I had to do was I had to insert these 5 lines of code to basically log the energy level, the silence threshold, and the silence hits based on a channel variable, inducing upon the call there. And then you're going to go ahead and do a make core-install and service FreeSWITCH restart. Adjust your dial plan accordingly. Make sure you put in the channel variable, and then away you should be able to go with actually reading the input values of what FreeSWITCH actually calculates for this stuff. Alright, so hopefully that was entertaining, if anything else. If not, hopefully you learned something. Thanks for being a part.